Hi, it's Lawyer Pina. One of the hottest topics these days, and a question that gets debated quite a bit, is this question and this issue of mandatory vaccines. Now, the federal government has come out very clearly and stated that it is not going to mandate vaccines, leaving it therefore to the provinces to make that decision. The provinces, so far, Alberta and Ontario has come out and indicated that they are not going to be making vaccines mandatory because clearly it is a breach of our constitutional rights. However, there may be provinces coming out and somehow making them either mandatory or putting forth certain restrictions on individuals who are not vaccinated. And it's looking like the province of Quebec may be the first province to sort of enter that uncharted territory. Certainly, if there are restrictions being placed on individuals who have not been vaccinated, advocacy groups are going to be bringing forward challenges to these provincial policies and legislation, absolutely, without a doubt. We're definitely going to see a lot of challenges at the employment level where employers are putting in place policies requiring their employees to be vaccinated. So that doesn't mean that because it is a policy that an employee loses their right to make the decision that for whatever reason they may not want to be vaccinated. Now, an employee may not want to be vaccinated for religious or other reasons, and they certainly will have the right to challenge that. So we're going to see a lot of litigation in this regard, absolutely. Ethically, it would be very difficult to justify any mandatory vaccines, and in the same light to justify putting restrictions on individuals who have not been vaccinated. Because if we look at the snapshot of where we are today with the science, we have a Western University expert on medical ethics who very clearly stated that there's no clear evidence that vaccines would actually reduce infections or deaths. That's where we're at today. And secondly, we have limits on the vaccine supply, and that would make it ethically problematic. It's important to understand that as science changes, then so does the law. And if we look at decisions that were made by the courts at the beginning of the pandemic, maybe they would have been decided differently 1 year later because now we have a lot more knowledge and we know more about the science than we did 1 year ago. An example is Taylor versus Newfoundland, where Taylor was wanting to enter the province of Newfoundland for her mother's funeral and brought forth a charter breach because she was restricted from entering because the province of Newfoundland passed legislation. They closed their borders. They were one of the first provinces to close their borders because their numbers were so low, and they wanted to make sure that they didn't have anybody from the outside provinces bringing COVID into their province. So Taylor was decided in that the decision was made by the courts that she could not enter Newfoundland. One of the things that you'll hear constitutional lawyers speaking of all the time is what is contextual. So really decisions are made based on specific facts, taking into account various different factors when we're looking at courts deciding whether there is a charter breach or not. And that is why in the case of an argument brought forth where you have a charter breach because of COVID restrictions or any legislation that is passed vis-a-vis COVID by the government, it is all going to be contextual. And so because the information and the science is evolving every single day, science does change with the law, and therefore there's a likelihood that the same case could be decided differently given the snapshot of where we are in time, because the information and the science that is made available and what we know is going to vary from one time period to another. So if the science changes, does that mean that at some point governments may actually mandate vaccines? I mean, that is not a far fetch either, but it's going to have to depend on what the science is at that point in time. And absolutely, there is going to be more and more litigation coming down the pike. We are going to see advocacy groups challenging any restrictions. And we absolutely need this because we are in uncharted territory and we actually need the precedents. Certainly interesting times for constitutional lawyers, human rights lawyers, and advocates. We are going to see the development of case law as we navigate our way through this. It's all new. And as we start to see the development of case law, I will keep you updated. Thank you for watching.